Hey everyone, so I wanted to talk today about environmentally friendly paints and eco-friendly paints. Now, those terms can be used interchangeably, but I'm going to kind of separate them. This video is more about VOC levels. Now, VOC stands for volatile organic compounds, and the volatile organic compounds are the chemicals and toxins, unfortunately, that are released during the drying process. So the EPA has set standards for VOC levels. They're a little outdated. I'll just run through them really quick. What they consider to be a low VOC paint, so it's 100 grams of VOCs per liter of paint for a flat water-based paint. It's 250 grams of VOCs for a shiny paint, an eggshell or a semi-gloss, and 350 grams for an oil-based paint. Okay, now when I think of a number like 250, that is off the charts high, right? The EPA is way out of step of where they should be here. What has happened is manufacturers they've kind of self-regulated, right? Consumers, painters like me, we want safer alternatives. You know, I have to be around it all the time, and you certainly don't want to be around it, especially if you have kids. And so what they've done, they've kind of self-regulated. Now, besides the self-regulation by manufacturers, we have the state of California, and the California is kind of the EU of the United States. It's a very progressive, and they have very strict standards on the amount of VOCs that can go into their paints. Manufacturers have a tendency to follow their lead. So there's no real universal terminology that I could find about low, no, and zero VOCs. So I'm going to define it as a low VOC paint is 50 grams of VOCs per liter or lower. A no would be 5 grams or less, and a zero would be exactly that. So if you buy a zero VOC paint and you really want it to be zero, make sure that the colorants or the tints that they put into the paint are also zero VOC. The reason that I talk about a no VOC paint is some manufacturers have zero VOC paints, but then they add colorants, which ticks up the VOC level. So overall, if to be safe, and again, most manufacturers have done this, so you're going to wind up buying low VOC paints anyway, but if you're concerned, look at the VOC levels. If you're between 0 and 50, you're really taking a huge step to protect the environment and to protect your health. But now I want to spend a couple minutes taking just a very, very quick but deep dive into the VOC thing. So the issue is that the EPA has a list of VOCs, okay? And those VOCs, if they go into a paint, have to be used in the calculation for the VOC level in that gallon of paint. The problem is the VOC list is this big, and the chemicals for the VOC list that go into paint are this big, right? So there are chemicals that are not being included in the VOC calculation, and some terrible ones, right, are formaldehyde, ammonia, acetone. I read a couple months ago where a paint manufacturer that created a chemical that goes into paint was excited because the EPA was pulling their chemical off the VOC list. Now, don't get me wrong, the VOC level to that chemical was very, very low, but what if there are 20 companies throwing a VOC into a paint that's not on the VOC list? So I'm not trying to scare you, I'm just trying to give you information, right? So if you're concerned about what's coming out of the wells, then you need to pay attention to the paint that you're buying. Now, what you could do as an alternative, you could purchase an eco-friendly paint. Now, I'm using this term differently because eco to me is a paint is non-toxic and has all natural ingredients. So there are a number of companies out there that create non-toxic, all-natural products. Ecos, Real Milk Paint, Benjamin Moore, which you know I'm a fan of, they have a Natura line. There's YOLO and Safecoat. Okay, so that's just a few of the brands that are out there that you could use if you want to be super safe about this. But if you're really, really concerned, like I use Natura from Benjamin Moore, but they have a mildewcide in the paint. So you have to decide how far you want to take this. So this video is more about just giving you information. Just the more knowledge you have, the better decisions that you can make. So I'm not trying to scare anybody. I'm just letting you know that just because a paint has a zero VOC level in it doesn't mean that there's not a shitty chemical in it. So just be super aware of it. I hope this video is informational. If you have any comments, please leave them below. I try to respond to every comment that I receive. If you think about giving me a thumbs up, and if you're not a subscriber, I'll help you think about subscribing to my channel. Okay, thanks a lot.